Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. I'm your host, Coach Paul Tripoli, here on a special occasion with the special teams coach for the Baltimore Ravens, TJ Weist. Coach, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Well, Paul, thanks for having me on. Just talking to you brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah, it does. OT Town, man. You're an amazing story. Before I get to you walking on in Alabama, you're from Bay City, Michigan.
Yeah.
Gosh, talk about your mom and dad, any siblings, and growing up in Bay City.
Youngest of 8.
Youngest of 8?
Youngest of 8. My mom and dad, and you'll like this, my mom and dad grew up in South Bend, Indiana. My dad went to Notre Dame. My mom went across the street at St. Mary's. My mom did a radio show at WNDU. My grandfather taught there. My other grandfather was a stadium usher for 25 years. I went to the Digger Phelps basketball camps in 77 and 78. So I really grew up with Notre Dame.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So you're a Notre Dame fan before you're a Michigan fan. Well, talk about the story. You're youngest of 8. I've got a little brother theory. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. So, I've got a little younger brother theory that they always get beat up. They get scraps at the dinner table. Yeah. They're always fighting, trying to play with their older brothers, friends and their older brothers. Talk about that dynamic, because without my older brothers, I'd have never played.
Well, I was really the athlete of the family. It wasn't a lot of athletes. We had 4 boys and 4 girls. Yeah, we always fought. We played basketball, really a lot of basketball, not a lot of football. None of my brothers, one brother played football. But it was more about basketball most of the time. And really, I didn't catch on to football really till about my junior year in high school. And I don't know how I played college football. I mean, because I only played 7 games of high school football. But it's just something that I knew I needed. I needed that discipline.
What made you, I walked on, I didn't know where Alabama was on the map, but you went sight unseen as well. Talk about the story coming in the fall of '84. Talk about that.
Well, I graduated high school in '83 and broke my ankle twice, junior year and senior year. Came in, skinny white kid, 160 pounds, Yeah. I didn't know anything about Alabama. Really, I knew Notre Dame. I knew Michigan from living, growing up in Michigan.
Yeah.
But a lot of people asked me later, why did you pick Alabama? Why did you go there? And I really found out later in life why. When I went to Notre Dame basketball camp, I was walking around campus. And I really realized then, I don't know, 7th or 8th grade, I wanted to play big time basketball or football, something. And I always had that in the back of my head, but I never was that great of an athlete to get all those scholarships and do all that stuff. So I really figured when I was a senior, I really thought I want to play for the best. And at the time, 79 and 80, obviously Alabama won 2 national championships. That was me in high school. I knew nothing about Alabama, but I knew they were the best. And something was just intriguing about Alabama. Something really, you know how it is. Something just drew me there.
Yeah, me too.
And so what happened was I had no help from my high school coaches. I didn't, I really wasn't that good in football. Yeah. And I wrote a letter to Perk and, the staff. And I was talking to David Rader last night. He said to say hello. Okay. And I told him I wrote, he probably passed it. Perk probably passed the letter to David Rader. He did nothing with it, So I got no reply. And so I knew nothing. I didn't know anything. Got no help from anybody. So I showed up. I applied to school, got in on my own, sold everything I had, sold my car, did everything to pay for it. And I told my parents, I'm going to Alabama. And they drove me down, and I got to campus a little over a week late for practice. Mm-hmm. And I think it was maybe Brad Bradford, probably Dude Hennessy. It was either Dude or Brad was running the dorms. Mm-hmm. I really went to Bryan Hall first for some reason. And I think it was Dude was the first guy I talked to. And he's like, hey, you can't come out. You're too late, And so I really pushed it. And I forced my way in and went over to the football office. What was it, Coleman or University back then? And kind of just forced my issue. And they wouldn't let me. But they stuck me in the dorms. I was in the dorms with Joey Jernigan. He was a walk-on wide receiver. Mm-hmm. And so I was in the dorm with him. So somehow I started going to practice. And I just was at practice, watching practice. They let me go into practice. And then he moved into Crimson Towers, so I moved in with him. And they weren't going to let me out, but they were going to let me walk on in after the season in January. So I lived in Crimson Towers, with all those other football players, a lot of the walk-on players and all the guys, other sport athletes. And I was living with all football players, so I was going to practice the whole fall. And then in January, I technically walked on with Rocky Colburn and that whole crew.
Yeah.
And that's how I got started.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing story!
Yeah.
Walk-ons have a special place in both of our hearts. It's kind of a kindred spirit. I had Rudy Rudiger on the show last week, and his amazing story. It's so you must have a place in your heart for free agents and long shots as well. That come to the Ravens.
Yeah, no question. And even I coached before I came to the Ravens. This is my 6th year, and I was in college coaching for about 30 some years. And I used to like take the walk-ons and encourage them and tell them, kind of bring them along,
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, I really got mad at the walk-ons because a lot of walk-ons didn't really give great effort and they give up and do all those other things. So I just said, hey, listen, if you want to play, you're going to come in here and bust your ass and earn a spot and beat out everybody and do what everything a walk-on has to do, has to be work harder than everybody, has to do all those things. Yeah, and it really is kind of like the free agents we got now. They got to take all the reps. They got to jump in line, in first. They got to be out there early. All those things still apply. And even right now, we've got 90 on our team. We're going to cut it down to 53. But I'm talking to my guys all the time, or even in special teams. You got to be the first one out there. You got to take every rep. Because all these guys, we have a scout team. We got scout teams.
Mm-hmm.
We got to have look teams for all of our guys. And they're like, I don't want to be on scout team. I'm an NFL player. But no, you got to go out. It's almost the same process.
Wow, that's interesting. Great wide receiver walk-ons at Alabama. I don't know what it is. Todd Richardson, Billy Getchell from New York, Dabo Sweeney walked on as a wide receiver.
Sure.
It's a long road to hoe, man. And I got a lot of respect for you guys. You had some really good teammates. Marlon Humphrey, right?
Bobby.
Marlon Humphrey's dad, Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby. Mike Shula, Cornelius Bennett, Derek Thomas, who's the only person in NFL history to have 7 sacks in one game. Okay. Yeah, talk about your days at Bama and any great memories, because it's hard to remember all the games and all the plays.
Well, the first really memory, one of the best memories I had, involves you. Really, fall of '84. Somehow I got a sideline pass, maybe from Joey Jernigan, maybe, I don't know. I got a sideline pass. Okay. I wasn't on the team yet, but I was, I was in Crimson Towers, all that stuff. So I got on the sidelines, and you'll love this game. It's the Penn State game in '84. Okay. And I'm standing on the sideline. Okay. I didn't grow up with Alabama football. I didn't, grow up, and I'm just learning about Alabama football. Right. So I'm standing on the sideline. Now, here it is. It's Saturday in Tuscaloosa. It's ABC. It's Penn State. They just won the national championship, the year before. I think they were number 11. It's Keith Jackson. And I'm standing there watching the game. And you're out there playing. You're out there making plays. I do remember that. I almost had that interception that one play. And so I didn't really have any of these teammates yet, except for the guys that lived in Crimson Towers. And I tell this to people all the time. I turned and looked to my right, and Joe Namath was standing right there. And it didn't faze me. Today, even to now, I'd be a little bit in awe of Joe Namath and, hey, Joe and all that stuff. But at the time, it just seemed fitting that Joe Namath was there. It's Tuscaloosa. It's big-time football. It's Penn State. It's ABC. So, and I turn, there's Joe Namath. Well, that's how it's supposed to be. Joe Namath is supposed to be here. It's Alabama. But that was really one of my first impact feelings that I had at Alabama, of how big Alabama was.
Oh my gosh. When I walked on there, and I came from, like I said, George O'Leary was my high school coach, and we went undefeated my senior year. We were killing people. But when the varsity came on, I went, holy shit, what am I doing here? Oh, yeah. That was like, it took me like 2 years before to dress my first game. And then, but
so with that, you asked me a minute ago, one of the first times we ran the 40 in the spring, I think I got decent speed or whatever. And I run like a 4.6 or 4.58 or something like that. And then Cornelius comes out, 6'4", 255, and runs like a 4.38 or 4.41. And I was like, I almost felt like I don't belong here. But you talk about impressive. I mean, that was one of the most impressive feats I've ever seen, was him running that 40 with that type of body and the athlete that he was.
Sometimes you did feel like you didn't belong, but there is a moment in everybody's life, especially walk-ons, that make them believe that they do belong. And I think that time for me, I want to ask you, but I'll tell you the time for me was in practice when Major Ogilvy came out in that shot in that wishbone, and he is a lead blocker on me, and I knocked him back, and I went, wait a minute, that's an All-American running back, the best that ever was. So and also, Coach, I want to ask you the moment that you thought you could make it, and the coach that believed in you, because without people like Coach Griska and Al Miller and Kent Johnston, I would have never played. Who believed in you?
I'd have to say probably number one would be David Rader. When I got there, he was a quarterback coach, and then he moved over to receivers, and he became my receiver coach. And to this day, he's one of my mentors, one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. Coached me with the receivers. I think maybe my sophomore, junior year, or something like that. And he was the one that had the most impact with me while I was there. Mm-hmm. and beyond, because later on in coaching, I coached for him when he was the head coach at Tulsa. After he went with Rocky at Mississippi State, he became the head coach at Tulsa. He hired me to be his receiver coach.
Oh, wow.
And we've been close. We've been really close ever since. So I would have to say he's
Coach Rader.
Yeah, he's the one.
90 to 93, wide receiver coach in Michigan with Gary Moeller. You had five years at Indiana. Western Kentucky, 2002 through 2009. I coached the kid at Catholic that went to Western Kentucky. Cincy, UConn, and then you joined Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Talk about your travels and what you learned along the way, Coach.
Well, right when I finished playing, I stayed right there. As a GA. My senior year was Bill Curry and Tommy Bowden. So I played for those guys at my senior year. And really had a great experience, even though, how it is as a walk-on, you kind of build up with the staff and you get a good reputation. Then a new staff comes in. Bill Curry comes in. I got to start all over with Tommy Bowden as a walk-on, kind of get knocked to the bottom, So we finished that season, my senior year. But in that senior year, we went to Notre Dame, okay? And I got to travel to Notre Dame. And probably the second most influential coach that shaped who I am from Alabama and beyond was Rich Wingo. I mean, he was my strength coach, starting right there my senior year. Yep. And then when I was a GA, he was there, and we've been good friends ever since. Everybody knows Rich and what he's about, and how much character and what a great man he is and what a great friend he is, and obviously what a great player he was. Mm-hmm. And so my senior year, I got to travel to Notre Dame. And the best football experience in my life was being able to represent Alabama against Notre Dame in Notre Dame Stadium, where I grew up, where my parents grew up. My grandfather was a stadium usher in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and touchdown Jesus and all that stuff, and that was the greatest experience. And that year, my senior year, at the end, we played Michigan in the Hall of Fame Bowl.
Oh my gosh!
So I got to play against Michigan.
Wow.
Two games in 1 year. And what happened was I was a little cocky and I wanted to be a coach and all that. So before the Michigan game, Cam Cameron was he was a receiver coach in Michigan. I don't know who he was. And so I wrote a letter to Cam and I said, hey coach, want to go into coaching, interested to meet you at the game. And, maybe we can talk and all that stuff. And so at the bottom of the letter, I said, P.S., we might want to meet before the game because you won't be too happy after the game. So, he kept that, and he's kept it. He's always, made fun of me for saying that. But he thought at the time, this kid's got some balls. So I met him at the game.
Yeah, you do have some collusions.
Yeah, and that became my connection with Michigan because he wanted to bring me on right away at Michigan. Didn't work out. I ended up going 2 years later, but luckily I ended up staying at Alabama to be a GA. Well, right when I finished playing in '87 with Coach Curry, I walked into his office in January. I said, Coach, I want to coach. Maybe a spring, be a student coach in the spring, be a GA in the fall, and all that stuff. And he goes, okay. He says, first thing you do is you walk down the hall to our new coordinator and see if he's got anything for you to do. So I walked down the hall, knocked on the door, Homer Smith.
Oh my gosh.
I had no idea who Homer Smith was.
Oh my gosh.
No idea. And Homer, TJ, so nice to meet you. And third most influential coach of anything I had to do in coaching is Homer Smith.
Oh,
Because you
my gosh.
talk about just a great,
A legend.
great man, a legend. Well, here's what he did. Tommy's on the road recruiting. Everybody's out recruiting. He takes me, and he had all these separation techniques from UCLA and all coaching receivers and skill guys. And he wanted to teach the Alabama receivers the separation techniques, all of the unbelievable detail with, center of gravity and movements and angles and lines and geometry and all that stuff. So he literally took me for about 4 or 5 weeks and took me in the indoor building. And I did all the drills that we were going to show the receivers in the spring. He taught me all the drills.
That's brilliant.
And I learned more from about being a receiver in those 5 weeks than I did my whole life.
Oh, my
God. I got one-on-one technique, everything from Homer, and it was a great spring. Tommy came out and I had demonstrated for Tommy Bowden and all the players and all those guys. Marco was still playing and Greg was still playing Payne. And it was great. Then I became a GA, for Tommy and for Homer, and had a great 2 years in that run and the 89 run and all that stuff. So it was an exciting time to be a GA there. A little different,
Gosh. So when did now you're in your, is it 5th or 6th year here with the Ravens?
6th year.
6th year.
Yeah.
Last 3 years. Okay. Want to brag on you a little bit, TJ. Number 2 ranking in 2020, number 1 ranking in 2021, number 3 last year. A couple questions. How did you get into special teams? People don't realize it's a third of the game, but you got some Pro Bowlers. Kicker Justin Tucker just scored a franchise record career high 142 points last year. His sixth Pro Bowl. Talk a little bit about Tuck.
Well, we've been lucky. I say lucky, but having John Harbaugh as our head coach, him being one of the best special teams coordinators in the history of the NFL, it just works. Chris Horton's our special teams coordinator. Jerry Rosberg was our coordinator. Just great coaches in front of me. Great history of everything that we do, of our system and how we put things together and how aggressive we are. We take pride in being number one. Obviously, you have our goals to be number one, but everything is based around being the best. And it's easy to do that here from the overall organization. You walk in the door and Ozzy's right down the hall from me.
Yeah.
Eric DaCosta, John Harbaugh, everybody here. It's a first-class organization. And it's just an honor for me to walk in with Ozzy every day, because I have that Alabama influence. But everything comes together for us in special teams because we're built around special teams. Now we just take the players that we've got and just, fit them into our system. What happened was I've been an offensive coach, wide receiver coach, offensive coordinator my whole career. And I started out here with the Ravens on offense. And John really convinced me to move over to special teams. I didn't have a lot of experience on offense, and so I wanted to do it. And so I've interviewed a couple times for special team coordinator jobs in the NFL, and that's what I want. I want to be a special teams coordinator in the NFL. So I'm pretty close to it now. But one of the things I wanted to do is stay in the NFL to keep my family consistent, keep my kids. I've got young kids, keep them in school. Because my one son moved. He was, by the time he was in 7th grade, he was in 7 schools.
Wow.
We moved, 12 times, and it just got to be too much for my family. But special teams was a great opportunity. I'd never really done it too much before, but I'm really excited about it, about being a coordinator, and all those things.
Coach, first or second in the division 4 out of 5 years. You talk about the standard and expectations are high there. The culture. I coached the kid Jeremy Reeves for the Commanders. In high school. Right? Yeah, I coached him, man, in high school. Yeah. What a great guy. What a great ball player. What an overachiever he is.
Sure he is.
Yeah, I don't know if you've met him at all, but
we're playing him next week?
Yeah, playing him next week, the 21st, Monday night, actually.
Yeah.
And tell him I said hey. Tell him Coach Tripp said hey. He'll know. He'll know. Yeah, tell him it's a beautiful day for football because he'll remember that. Because every day I'd walk on the field. Every day I'd walk on the field. That was my mantra, man. It's a beautiful day for football. All right, Coach. Let's talk some players. You actually got to coach Desmond Howard. How good was Desmond?
he was special. I mean, he had a different gear
Did
and
he?
ability to go catch the football. Just great speed. I mean, we ran a 4.28. Really, he ran a 4.28 electronic in his pro day. 4.28 electronic. This is in 1991 when he won the Heisman Trophy. You know, when I walked in, when I finished up at Alabama, you know, we played in the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, lost to Miami, and then I got offered the job in Michigan. I left 7 days later, right when Gene Stallings was coming in.
Wow.
And Cam Cameron had moved. Bo Schembechler retired at Michigan. Cam Cameron moved from receivers to quarterbacks, so he hired me as a receiver coach at Michigan. Well, I walk in the door, I got Derek Alexander, I got Desmond Howard. The next year, I had Mercury Hayes. I had Amani Toomer. I mean, I had, you know, in 4 years, I think I coached 9 or 8 NFL athletes, NFL wide receivers at Michigan. We won 5 Big Ten championships in a row. We played for the national championship twice. I went to 2 Rose Bowls. So it was a great experience coming from Alabama, going to Michigan, 2 of the best programs in the history of football. I was pretty spoiled to start out my career, be involved in those too. So it was special coaching those guys, you know, and really I had to get them lined up, you know, teach them what to do, and then just let them go.
Coach, thoughts on changing the kickoff in football? What are your thoughts on that? And what's the word? What do you think is going to happen?
No, it's not going to affect anything, I don't think. You know, every year they come out and they say you got concussions in this and all that, and got too many concussions. So they feel like they got to make a change. You know, so we went through a whole off season 2 years ago, last year, with all the special teams coaches about, you know, what can they do? Take away the gunners, you know, take away the vice, you know, kickoff, change the kickoff, back it up, move it forward, you know, put the college rules in. I think that they're just trying to find a way to stop those head-on collisions.
Full speed head-on
collisions.
collisions.
Full speed. And, you know, us as special teams coaches, we don't want it to go away. The more they take away special teams, the less job we have. You know?
Yeah. Coach Lamar, how's he doing with Odell Beckham Jr.? Your wide receivers coach for many years. How are they looking in camp?
They're looking really good. They're really coming together, really gelling. You know, Lamar looks good as he always does. You know, we're all kind of adjusting to the new offense, which it's hard to tell, you know, how much difference it's going to be. You get new language, new formations, same formations, just different ways of calling it.
Yeah.
You know, I think we may spread the ball out a little more, but you know, it's going to be Lamar. I mean, when Lamar won the MVP, he led the NFL in passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no doubt he's a great thrower, you know, and a great runner. He's really a great playmaker. But Odell adds a whole nother level of experience and big time playmaking, and we've really upgraded our skill around Lamar.
Touch a little bit on the Harbaughs. They're my favorite coach and family. I think Jack Harbaugh, John and Jim. Talk about Jack, their dad.
Oh, he's here actually now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he goes back and forth between John and Jim. And I was lucky to coach for all 3.
Oh my gosh!
And everybody always asks me, you know, to compare the 3 and all that. And the first thing I always say is the most competitive person in the family is Jackie Harbaugh, Jack's wife. She's the most competitive of all of them. So you can see why John and Jim are so competitive with those 2 as parents. But you know, I kind of grew up not playing. Me and Jim were about the same age. You know, he played at Michigan a little earlier than I played at Alabama. Didn't play against each other. He was gone in the '88 Hall of Fame game. But then when I joined Michigan, Cam Cameron, who was became the quarterback coach and later coached me and John in Indiana. He was Jim's basically quarterback coach at Michigan. So I walk in the door at Michigan. I got Cam, you know, with Jim, and then John is coming back working football camp. Jack used to coach at Michigan in the '70s with Bo for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. He was there for a long time. I think maybe 7 years. But he was at Michigan for a long time, you know, part of the great years at Michigan with Bo Schembechler. And so I got to coach. We came back in '97. I was at Michigan from '90 to '94. And then in '97, Cam Cameron became the head coach at Indiana. So he brought me and John Harbaugh to Indiana. Mm-hmm. I became the receiver coach. John became the defensive back coach. So we coached together that year. Then John left and started his NFL career with the Philadelphia Eagles from there. Mm-hmm. So I stayed with Cam for 5 years. And then later on, after I moved around, I was done at Western Kentucky, I think it was. And I ended up going to, before that. at Indiana. We finished up at Indiana. We got fired at Indiana. I went to Western Kentucky with Jack Harbaugh. Jack brought me over, and we won the national championship that year. It was AA, and it was a special year. It was Jack's last year. We won the national championship together. Don Martindale was our linebacker coach. I coached the running backs and receivers. Willie Taggart, who's now our running back coach, he was our offensive coordinator. So we had a lot of guys together on that staff with Jack and had an unbelievable year, really unbelievable.
Couple more things, Coach, and then I'll let you go. Wide receiver Devin Duvernay was selected the AFC Pro Bowl last year as a return specialist. How's he doing? Is he back again this year?
Yeah, he's back. Yeah, he's doing really good. You know, he's a returner. He's a very fast, talented player. Really did a great job on offense as a wide receiver. Made some big plays for the offense. You know, he's just another weapon for them. But he's our main weapon. You know, he's very consistent. You know, tough kid from Texas. You know, and a lot goes on here with rivalries. You know, it's all we're talking about. Last year, we were on the train to go play the Jets last year when the Texas-Alabama game was on. So we had a lot of going back and forth about that game and this year. So
Coach,
we don't have a lot of Alabama players left. You know, but we still get after it.
Coach, you got 2 Alabama DBs and no Alabama wide receivers on your team. I just had to give you the.
I know. Yeah, I don't think we've had a wide receiver from Alabama. I have a lot of different DBs. I don't know what else he's doing, but.
All right, let's talk about your Alabama memorabilia collection. Oh my God, man! You got to tell the Coach Bryant's field chart story, and thanks for sending me. Joe Willie Namath, Bama
practice jersey, the old practice jersey, the old Bama practice jerseys.
Is that Major Ogilvy's number 42 you sent me?
Yeah,
jersey?
that's his. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Coach.
Oh yeah.
I want you to talk real quickly about the 1961 book that Coach Stalling came on my show, said he wrote 95% of.
Hell yeah, no question. Well,
how to build a championship football team.
Yeah, and that was really Coach Bryant's only scheme book. And with that, when I was there at Alabama, we had a lot of memorabilia. The Bryant Hall or Bryant Museum wasn't open yet, so all that old stuff, all the old stuff was down in the Coliseum, down in the concourse on below there and all that.
Yeah.
And when we built a new building. They put it up on the walls everywhere in the offices and all that stuff and put them in storage and everything. So we saw that stuff all the time. But one of them was the sign that I've actually got in my office, the field zone chart. And it was a field zone chart. And it's about 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide. But it was Bobby Luna, the running back coach. He drew it up for Coach Bryant. And it was just describing the field zone areas on offense. But it goes back. It's a danger zone, freewheeling zone, gut zone. Obviously, the gut zone.
Gut zone's like the red zone going in.
Yeah, and the promised land.
The promised land's the end zone. Forward. Yeah. Danger zones are red zone.
And and I brought this in. It's right here. It's in my office. Obviously, there it is, right there.
Oh, there it is.
I brought this in. Let's see if I can get it right here. I brought this in. To show Ozzie when I first got here, and then so many coaches liked it. That I just kept it in here, and they're always talking about it. And so because it has such a rich history, because it was behind Coach Bryant's desk in '58, and then Coach Griska, talking to Coach Griska and Coach Hennessy and all those guys, he moved it into which was the staff room at the time.
Yeah.
And he moved it into the team room, and everybody had to know the language from it, and it's in Coach Bryant's book, Stallings' book in 1661. But I've got right here, I brought it in with me just to show you. This is the 1934 Alabama playbook from Dixie Howell, the quarterback, obviously, really the MVP of the national championship Rose Bowl.
God, Coach.
And so these are legitimate. Frank Thomas was the coach. Notre Dame quarterback. So this is the Notre Dame box offense in 1935 Rose Bowl. 1934.
Oh my gosh, that's what Coach. Talk about that connection from Notre Dame to Alabama. People don't realize Frank Thomas played for Newt Rockne.
Yeah, Frank Thomas was Coach Rockne's quarterback really in 21-22. And he was George Gipp the Gipper. He was his roommate.
Oh
Frank
my!
Thomas was in charge of the Gipper because the Gipper was so wild. Frank Thomas had to take Coach Bryant, or Coach Rockney had said you had to take care of him and keep him out of trouble. And so obviously he was the quarterback before the Four Horsemen, because the Four Horsemen were in the 25 Rose Bowl, the 2014.
Right.
And so with that, I look back at that chart. Well, I found this chart right here in the playbook. Well, this is the same. You can see it. This is the same chart, all the same wording. It's got the danger zone coming out. It's got the freewheeling zone, take a chance zone. It's got the scoring zone, everything. And
it goes into detail and explains
unbelievable. Yeah,
what you got to do in those zones.
Everything. It's right here. For Bear Bryant, Paul Bryant as a player, opposite Don Hudson, and on the chart it says the three must get your man, must not break signal, must not get penalty. Well, all three musts, which in Coach Bryant's book, in this field zone chart, it says the word must like 50, I think it's 54 times says the word must. So what happened was I started doing all the research, and I thought, well, this is a Frank Thomas playbook, a Frank Thomas offense. So I went back to Newt Rockney. I went back to his playbook, which is right here. Hold on, I brought it in. I went back to his playbook, which is called Coaching, his only scheme football book called Coaching in 1925.
Oh my gosh, Coach!
Well, so I found this.
Holy mackerel!
All right, this is his field zone chart. That's in his book in 1925.
Holy mackerel, Andy!
The danger zone coming out, transitional running zone, transitional forward pass zone in 1925, and the scoring zone.
It's funny how how you learn from the previous coaches. You don't really reinvent the wheel. You never reinvent the wheel. It's already been invented. The problem is a lot of these younger coaches, they don't study stuff like that, and they don't even know about stuff like that.
No, it's the playbooks they had. The Newt Rockney coaching book in 1925 is one of the most complicated, complex football books I've ever read. It's unbelievable, the detail that he had. And even more, Fielding Yost's book in 1905, football for spectator, I think player and spectator, is an unbelievable detailed book too. I mean, so coaching, the detail that's gone on in coaching forever. I mean, I got right here, I brought some stuff in for you.
Oh, wow.
I got a 1927 clinic that Wallace Wade did right here in 1927, football school.
Holy mackerel!
With his notes. I've got his notes in here from 1927. You talk about complicated football back in the old days.
Is it really? Was it really? How'd you find all that stuff?
Just through the year. Well, you know what happened was when we were at Alabama before the Bryant Museum, we confiscated or walked away or reallocated items. You leave or whatever, you pick up certain things.
Yeah, helmets.
And so collecting, you always collect your jersey and helmets, but I was more interested in the paper stuff.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I went to Michigan. Well, I'm in Michigan. We built a Schembecker Hall, a new football office. Well, we moved from the old football office where Bo Schembecker was for 20 years, and we moved into the new building. Well, they didn't have a museum. So their coaches are throwing out all these old playbooks and everything.
Oh my God.
And posters and banner, all this stuff. So they gave it to me. So all of a sudden, even before I was a collector, I had all this football stuff from Alabama and from Michigan. And from there, it really opened up when eBay really opened up. Then everything opened up. And in 1998 in eBay, that's when I first got, I really bought a lot of the estate of Dixie Howell. His wife was selling it. I got his playbook from 34. I got his yearbooks, the Corrales of his in 34 and 35. I got his A-Club certificate from 1933. I got a field zone chart. No, I'm sorry. A drive chart from the 1935 Rose Bowl that Fielding Yost had sent him. The drive chart, the cardboard. I sent you a picture of it. Cardboard in the press box. That's how they kept statistics of the drive chart. The lines going across. I had the original from the 35 playbook. Or 35 Rose Bowl. And then just through the years, I've just collected an unbelievable amount of helmets, jerseys, playbooks, coaching items, banners, everything. So I'm really excited about, obviously, Alabama football and the history of Alabama football.
Oh, me too. I love to read books and study old coaches. And it's funny that you mentioned how detail oriented they were. I was very detailed when I coached as well. And I would grade my DBs on 10 to 12 movements on every single play. So I tried,
great.
if you coach the details, coach, a lot of people said you can't be too detail oriented. Bull crap. The kids can consume that. They can understand it.
Well, here's what everybody thinks, okay? And I even thought this to a point that, you get in the NFL and these are pro athletes and, they all they care about is money and you just get them lined up and they play ball and, they're supposed to know what to do and all this stuff. That's none of that. None of that's true. These guys want to win and they want to play football, and we can coach them hard and we can coach them like we do college athletes. And the truth is, we got 90 on our squad right now. Well, let me tell you this. Of those 90, probably 60 are in their first 3 years of playing. So they're used to being coached hard. They're used to being coached hard in college. They're used to being coached like that. And of those 90, probably 75 are battling for a spot. So they're going to work hard. They better listen. They better do what we tell them to do. They better be accountable. They better do everything you have to do as a football player. Right. Otherwise, they're going to be sitting at home.
Right.
So we can coach hard. We can get after these guys. And a lot of the older guys we don't have to coach. You know what? That's great. Marlon Humphrey, we don't have to coach him. You talk about a great example of an NFL leader.
Is he?
Athlete. Oh, I mean, he likes to have fun. But
everybody does.
Anybody. He plays at an intensity level that is really higher than almost anybody else. And that's why he's so good.
Wow. Love it. Love it, Coach. All right. I don't want to put you on the spot, so you don't have to answer this question if you don't want. Michigan versus Ohio State or Alabama versus Auburn? Passion? Can you just say passion?
Obviously, I've been involved with both. I've been with 5, Ohio State, Michigan. But really, there's no comparison. There's no Alabama-Auburn is the ultimate rivalry.
Yeah.
There's so much passion involved with it. There's so much more at stake. Okay, the Big Ten, once in a while they'll win the national championship, but they'll be up there. But, Alabama-Auburn game's always been a pivotal game in winning the SEC, of being a part of winning the national championship.
Oh, gosh.
And Michigan-Ohio State, it's a great rivalry. It really is. It's got a lot of tradition, obviously, with Bo and Woody and all through the years. But Alabama-Auburn is truly the greatest rivalry in the history of football.
Yeah. Coach, I think it went 5 straight years, 5 or 6 straight years where the winner of the Iron Bowl went on to the national championship. So, that's that just about says it. All right, Coach, good luck. I know you got to.
Well, that's it. I mean, we could talk a couple more hours.
I know. I wish we could, man.
I mean, what about the 85 alumni game? Did you play in that?
I did.
You came back and played in that?
I did.
That was a great one.
I did play in that.
I'm going to tell you one thing, though. The one thing I always tell people, okay, if you say the word lower gym to really any Alabama player, he'll start to cringe. And it was one of the hardest things that we've ever gone through in life. You can't do it these days. You can't, we can't do it. They can't do it, all those things. But you talk about something that was just unbelievable. That was harder than any game, harder than anything we had to do.
Yeah, TJ, I brought last year, my brother came from New York. And when I played, I'm from upstate New York. So my brothers were in college. They didn't go to many games. When they did, they caught a big one in Birmingham. So my brother came down to Tuscaloosa, my nephew in California, and one of my friends in New York. And I took them to the Alabama game last year, and they were flabbergasted at the pomp and circumstance.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable.
Pom-pom. I call it pom-pom and circumstance.
Let me tell you one thing before I go. I don't know if I've already said this, but probably the highlight of my coaching career, for me personally, was I got to be the head coach when I was at South Florida. Willie Taggart was the head coach. He left to go to Oregon. I became the head coach for the bowl game. Well, we played in the Birmingham Bowl, and we played South Carolina. Well, I got to be the head coach in Legion Field against an SEC team, and we beat them. We beat South Carolina. but just being on that field.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a former Alabama player, being the head coach, you know, where Coach Bryant walked, where we all played. You know, that was probably one of the most special things in my career that I wouldn't trade for anything.
Coach,
just to be a part of that.
Coach, man, you're such a great story, great success story. I'm really proud of you, and good luck this year. And
Well,
let's do it again soon.
Yeah, anytime, Paul. I appreciate it. Good luck to you,
buddy. Hey, have a great one, Coach. Good luck.
You too. All right, take care.
Bye bye. Wow, that was outstanding. One of my favorite interviews of all time. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for these messages, because without these great sponsors, this just wouldn't be possible.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Step One works so hard to get you in the perfect car. Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step One Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step One supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step One Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple pane of brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.